From the Department of Communication in Phillipsburg, this is a special edition of Inside Government with Cedric Peterson.
To our audience here at home and around the world, you're now Inside Government. In this edition of the program, I have the privilege of sitting down and speaking to my colleagues at Brandweer St. Maarten. That's the Fire Department St. Maarten under the Ministry of General Affairs. And I have in company with me Mr. Silvanico Pauletta, Head of Fire Prevention, Kirk Richardson, Fire Prevention and Fire Safety Inspector, and Edward Brooks, Fire Prevention and Fire Safety Inspector. Gentlemen, it's great to have you in this edition of the program.
Good day, Cedric and audience. Thank you for having us.
Good day, Cedric and viewing public. Thank you for having us.
Good day, Mr. Peterson. Thank you for having us.
Always a pleasure to have the opportunity to sit down and speak to you guys. It's once again a highlighted time of year for you where you'll be observing Fire Prevention Week once again. And the Fire Department St. Maarten will be having an open house this year, allowing the public to come down and see all the different varied activities and how the St. Maarten Fire Department goes about preventing and keeping us safe from fires and other hazards. Gentlemen, let's start off this conversation, first of all, talking about the Fire Prevention Week itself. The first question that comes to mind, and Silvanico, maybe you could set the tone here and start things off. How does St. Maarten's Fire Prevention Week differ from that of the Netherlands or the U.S.?
Well, the way it differs is basically we focus on the risks that happens here on St. Maarten, as the fire department is responsible for prevention of loss of damage to property, and also injuries and even prevent death. We look at the risk, what can happen to the people of St. Maarten. So it's not an off-the-shelf program. It's specifically focused for here.
What is this year's theme?
This year's theme is keeping our loved ones safe, because that's what it's all about. Once we take responsibility for our loved ones, in that way we prevent what we discussed just now, loss of and injuries.
You know, U.S. statistics show that homes today burn much faster. However, that's again a U.S. statistic. Our building code is by far different. However, what has your experience taught you over the years about home fires on St. Maarten?
Well, the statistics show that home fires are mainly caused by either overloaded outlets, malfunctioning equipment like a fan that does not spin anymore, but it remains plugged in, overheats and starts a fire. Same thing goes for air conditioning. So it's mainly unattended equipment that's left unattended, and in some occasions even fires like stoves that are left unattended. So that's why we focus during Prevention Week and in general on educating the public to know your risks, know the sources that could cause a fire, and tend to them. Don't leave them unattended.
Mr. Brooks and Mr. Richardson, feel free to jump in here. How are some tips that you can possibly share with us and the general public as to how they can go about making sure that they keep themselves safe, especially in line with the things that that Silvanico just highlighted there for us as some of the most common causes of fires in St. Maarten?
Yes, I would like to add to that. From past experience as a firefighter, we will tend to see with the religion aspect of burning candles for All Saints Days and those things. We used to see a lot of fires. You know, people will leave the candles burning, and then that tends to ignite a fire in the homes. But as we go along, we see the homes are really built stronger today, and we don't get much of those types of fires. So somehow the people, over the years, things have been getting better.
You mentioned a point there that sticks out for us when it comes to improving on our building code. Over the past, I would say the first thing comes to mind is from 1995, where our infrastructure was truly challenged by Hurricane Lewis from back then. Um, Give us some insight into how we have improved over those years.
Well, we've seen, instead of a lot of wooden structures, we've seen a lot of concrete structures going up. Or instead of the T111, we've seen cement board. So that will keep the fire more, say, if we do get a fire, it won't spread so rapidly like how it used to before with the T111 houses. That is what we see.
What are some basic things that individuals can do right now to get started and keeping themselves safe and providing fires in their homes?
Well, what we continuously preaching is the smoke detector and making sure you have a plan. We were in the schools about 2 years ago, just before the fire prevention month before COVID. We did all the primary schools and we had the kids draw the safety plan. We keep preaching about safety plans in your home and the smoke detectors. We had even little lectures with cartoons and little animations. And there we notice a lot. The kids tends to take home everything we teach them, they take it home. And from there we see it's getting real better with fire safety now.
Brooks, why the children?
Well, the children, it all starts there. Once they bring it back home, the parents tends to take it more serious because the kids tends to want to push that, hey, this is where it was taught and this is where it should be on a more safer side. You could bring it over to the parents also, but when it comes to the kids, they will more take a lead when they come to learn some from school back home.
We're talking to the representatives of the St. Martin Fire Department, my colleagues down there at the St. Martin, Brandweer St. Martin, and we're talking open house, Fire Prevention Week 2022, major activities coming up. When we get back in our next segment, we're going to talk about high-rises, apartments, and condominiums. St. Martin is seeing these come up much more now. We'll talk to our folks at the fire department to get some insight into how you can protect yourself if you live in some of these types of residences. Stay with us. You're Inside Government.
St. Martin, get ready for this year's edition of the Brown Pelican Sports Awards. Join us on Sunday, November 13th from 4:30 p.m. to 7 p.m. at the former Naga Supermarket in Madam Estate to celebrate our stars in attendance and sporting excellence in 2022. Tickets are $10. Get yours today at all Van Dorp locations and the NSI office at the Raoul Elite Sports Complex.
The Brown Pelican Sports Awards.
Honoring our sports legends and athletes.
Hashtag Sports Matters.
Hi, everyone. If you just joined us, I'm having a conversation with our fire department gentleman down there at St. Martin Fire Department, Mr. Silvanico, Pauletta, Mr. Kirk, Richardson, and Mr. Edward Brooks. These gentlemen help us in our country when it comes to fire prevention, and they also serve as fire safety inspectors at our fire department here in St. Martin, and they fall under the Ministry of General Affairs. They're having an open house that's going to be taking place during the month of October. And we want you to basically be a part of this. Silvanico, before we get into that, I want to ask the question. We are seeing an increase of high-rise apartments and condominiums in St. Martin, of course, as we develop and build. What tips can the fire department provide us when it comes to residents, of course, and such properties? What do people need to keep in mind?
People need to keep in mind is that the high rise comes with a different risk compared to the 1, 2, 3-story homes, and that you need to be acquainted with your surrounding and be aware as again with a risk, meaning to say that in case of a fire, know that you are not able to use the elevator. Be prepared to use the stairs. And also, a high rise usually is built in such a manner that to contain a fire, that you might not even need to flee. So it's important, once you choose to live in a high rise, know how it's prepared for an emergency and what is expected of you during an emergency.
Mr. Richardson, any added points there when it comes to residents of such properties, things that they need to be mindful of in order to make sure that they stay as safe as possible?
Yes, there are other points like for the fire safety. You have your emergency plans when it comes to living in a high-rise building. We have location plans. So as a tenant of the building, as Mr. Pauletta said, you have to know your surroundings. So on the walls, you will see your location plans, the plans that says when you go to a hotel, you see I am here, and you see the arrows leading to the exits. So you'll have to know where your fire extinguisher is, where the hose reel is, and the sounds of the fire alarm. That's the most important. The sound of the fire alarm. What to do when the fire alarm sounds. Where's the escape routes, exit signs. It's small things when you live in there. While you, on your daily routine, you check your emergency lights, see if they're working. If they're not working, you report it to the maintenance. Check your exit signs. Those are the pointers for people that lives in high-rise buildings.
Going back a little bit to Kirk, you mentioned in our first segment that one of the key things, at least at the home level, people should be mindful of is making sure that they install smoke detectors. One of the key things that keeps on coming up is people not maintaining them. They install and they forget. Let's go back there and share some tips in regard to proper maintenance of your smoke detectors. What should one do?
The smoke detector. We always have a joke when we go out on inspections. We ask when we come into the business, we mostly inspect by businesses, daycare centers and stuff like that. When we walk in and we hear it always gives a beep when the battery has to be changed. So we walk into the business and we ask them, don't you hear the bird chirping? The bird is beeping. And it shows us that the battery, when they hear the beeping, they forget to change the battery. And then the sound comes natural to them. So we have extra regulation where it's hardwired. So we advise on using the smoke detectors that uses battery and it's hardwired. So we know there's always protection there. But it will still beep when the battery is gone.
One of the key things that we see, gentlemen, too, I'd like to add to our conversation is home safety for people with disabilities. Can you share with us some of the tips and practices that you recommend for individuals who would have people with disabilities living at home? What is recommended in that regard?
Okay, for persons with persons that have a disability at home, there's where we will say for sure have smoke detectors. For sure have your escape routes clear. So if you have to use a wheelchair to get the persons out, you could get the persons out of the building as quickly and safely as possible. Those is what we really bring over to the public. Getting out of the building as safe and as quickly as possible. In event of a fire, in event of anything, when you have to get out of the building.
Mr. Brooks, as it relates to technology and the advancement of your work as a fireman and the fire department overall. Give us some insight in regard to how technology has played a role in making sure that how we deal with fire safety and prevention and perhaps suppression has advanced over the years.
Technology nowadays has gone so far that in the event of a call that the on the route to the fire, the captain is able to get much more information based on technology on, for example, the structure of a building, the danger surrounding, the incident. That is always a click of a button. And here right now at the fire department, I'm in the process of upgrading the St. Martin Fire Department to the latest technology in suppressing fire or any incident when it comes to safety to the public.
All right. Thanks a lot. Stay with us, folks, because coming up, we're going to get into our last segment. We're going to talk more about the open house, what activities are going to be available at the open house, what you can be exposed to, and of course, invite you all to come down and be a part of the open house experience that's going to be coming up at the St. Martin Fire Department. So stay tuned. More on that coming up right after the break.
St. Martin, get ready for this year's edition of the Brown Pelican Sports Awards. Join us on Sunday, November 13th from 4:30 p.m. to 7 p.m. at the former Naga Supermarket in Madam Estate to celebrate our stars in attendance and sporting excellence in 2022. Tickets are $10. Get yours today at all Van Dorp locations and the NSI office at the Raoul Illich Sports Complex.
The Brown Pelican Sports Awards.
Honoring our sport.
If you're just joining us, we're having a conversation with Silvanico, Pauletta, Mr. Kirk, Richardson, and Edward Brooks. These gentlemen are part of our fire department, St. Martin, and we're talking Fire Prevention Week 2022, and the fire department will be having an open house. We're going to get into the details of what you can expect at the open house. But one of the key things, going back from our previous segment, I was talking about the advancements in technology. Mr. Brooks, the St. Martin Fire Department has actually been a part of, some training over the past few years as it relates to digitization in your field as a fire department. Give us some insight there. What has been the advancements in that area?
Okay. One of the advancement in that is there were six firefighters that took part in a GIS course that took in January of this year up until May. So this GIS course basically train you and how to do the basic in technology when it comes to how to map, how to do digitizing in what any incident that there is. For example, we will train how to map out hydrants. When we do go out on inspection, we have a whole digitized map and mapping out every inspection, fire safety, operational license, so that by the time we reach by the office, it's just a click on the map and we have all information, all the pictures of the situation at the inspection there before our eyes.
Now, I don't want the audience to be too confused. It's not government information services. So GIS for you means what?
Geographic Information System.
All right. Thank you very much for that clarification. Gentlemen, let's get into the open house aspects and what can we expect. I just saw a few things that you have posted on social media when it comes to the activities, and I had a little personal joke in mind that you don't need to go to Disneyland this year because Disneyland is coming to you at the fire department open house because there's so much things that's going to be going on. Silvanico, set the tone for us. What are some of the things that people can expect to be a part of the open house experience?
Well, the people of St. Martin can expect that on October the 30th, from 9 to 6, the doors of the fire station will be opened to the general public. You'll be able to tour the building, see what the firemen do, how they live, and the equipment that we have. And also be able to even take it right on the truck. And there will be also more fun for the kids as we have a jumping castle, we will have water pools, and even a maze. So there are also activities for the grown-ups. We will have a maze. We will have an parkour. If you think you're one of the more fit ones, you could try to see if you're fire fit. So we would like to invite the general public, come see and get yourself educated on how you can make your own home safer, and all of this while having fun.
Gentlemen, I think each one of you might have a responsibility that day. Give us some insight. Mr. Richardson, Mr. Brooks, what would you guys be responsible for open house?
Okay, for the open house, I personally will be responsible for explaining the fire safety, because that is the part of my job. I am the one that makes, say, the whole island safe when it comes to fire and fire safety prevention. Also on the open house, we will be having vendors, persons that distribute fire safety stuff like products, fire alarm systems, fire extinguishers, everything to do with fire safety. We want to have some of those vendors here. And also, we are hoping that they also have a demonstration. So there will be all activities for when the public come. There will be activities. They will be able to see how a fire alarm system works. Even the sprinkler system, because we get questions about sprinkler system because we see it on television, even from the architects and the persons that want to build a building. They always have the same question. If in the event of a fire, would my whole building be completely underwater, like we see it on the television? But that's not the case. So all that information we'll be able to get during the open house. There's a lot of information about fire safety, so for the general public, come out and see what we have to share.
Yeah, my task for the open house is basically to show the public the technology we have here. We use at the fire department, and yeah, make them be assured that when the fire department arrive, we already have at least 50% knowledge of their surroundings.
Sounds good. One of the key questions I forgot to ask, as it relates specifically to our environment as a hotel vacation destination. You know, vacations, business travel make hotels and motels our home away from home. And it's just important to be prepared and know what you would do in a hotel or motel emergency situation. Take us in regard to that type of dwelling. What does the fire department focus on at these particular establishments when it comes to safety? Does the same principle apply here, Mr. Richardson, as you mentioned earlier, with regard to homes, apartment buildings, and condominiums, or is there something additional for hotels and resorts?
Okay, for the hotels, let's say motels, condominiums, and hotels, we have additional regulations. We follow it's a Dutch word, brandpreventievoorschriften. That's our regulations, and that's based on the NEN norms, the Dutch norms. So in those regulations, we start from the accessibility, getting to the building. Then we go to the time that it takes the building to collapse. Then from there, we go to the fire compartments. When I say fire compartments, we keep the fire at a minimum by using fire compartments. Then from the fire compartments, we go on how we will get the people out of the building. So there you get your exit signs, your emergency lights. And then we go over to the equipment for extinguishing a fire. And the Dutch system, we use hose reels. We give the persons in the building at least a chance to extinguish the fire before before it spread. We are all about stopping the fire from spreading. So we have the hose reels, the fire extinguishers. Then when the fire department comes for the high-rise buildings, everything over 10 meters, we have standpipes. So then our pumps will pump the water straight up so the fireman could go and extinguish the fires. And for a standpipe, we will need a fire hydrant. So those are the things we put in place. And we are lucky that we don't have much gas lines running through our high-rise like in the States and other places. We do a lot of electric stoves and stuff. So our buildings here on the island are real safe when it comes to that.
Gentlemen, we are definitely running out of time, and it's just when the conversation was really getting interesting because there's so much to talk about as it relates to what you do for us at the fire department when it comes to fire prevention and safety. I want to give you all the opportunity right now to provide your final words as we're closing out, starting with Mr. Brooks.
Thank you, Mr. Peterson, for inviting me to this program. I would like to invite the general public on Sunday, October 30th, to come see what the fire department is all about, see how the guys live while you guys are at sleep, that they are definitely at ease and protected. Thank you.
Mr. Richardson.
Well, I would like to thank you for having us here today. And as we see the conversation was getting so sweet, I think we need a follow-up as soon as possible.
And Mr. Pauletta.
Yes. Thank you, Cedric and audience, for having us indeed. And we are looking forward to continue share with you what you can do to keep the risk to minimum. Of course, we cannot live in a society without risk. There are always a risk, but it's good to know what you could do to contain and keep the effects to as minimum as possible. So thank you once again for having us.
Mr. Silvanico Pauletta, Mr. Kirk Richardson, and Mr. Edward Brooks, the gentleman that keeps us safe at the Fire Department of St. Martin. They are responsible for fire prevention, fire safety inspectors. They serve us in this capacity. And gentlemen, we want to thank you for the hard work and commitment to excellence in keeping us safe as Fire Department St. Martin. And we thank you for being a part of this edition of the program. And to our audience here at home and around the world, thank you for being a part of this edition of Inside Government. If you've missed my conversation with the representatives of the Fire Department St. Martin, be sure to catch video on demand at the 2 locations for video on demand at the Government of St. Martin. That's facebook.com/SXMGOV. And be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/Government of St. Martin. And for audio playback, be sure to stay tuned throughout the course of the day right here to St. Martin Gov Radio 107.9 FM. On behalf of my colleagues at Fire Department St. Martin and all of us here at the Department of Communication, I'm Cedric Peterson. Thanks so much for tuning in.